If you spend any time on social media or even just with regular people, you've probably noticed how many people are craving connection and specifically partnership and relationships. And at the same time, you also may be noticing how many people feel completely disconnected from even having access to that. It's not that I think intimacy stopped mattering. It's that when life gets full, intimacy is the first thing that we abandon. At least it was for me. And when intimacy isn't supported for long enough, we start telling ourselves that we don't need it and that our lives are fine without it. Welcome back to the Humaning Well podcast. I'm Amber Cabral, and today we're kicking off a new series for February. It's basically a month on love and intimacy. Today's episode, I'm going to jump right in by talking about intimacy, but before my single folks get triggered and try to run off, I too am single, okay? This episode applies whether you're partnered or dating or not dating or taking a break, because intimacy is broader than just your relationship status. And intimacy is not a bonus. It's a part of how we stay well. So what is intimacy? What do I mean when I say it? To me, intimacy is a combination of presence, vulnerability, and close connection. I think most of us relate this word to sex and romance because, truthfully, it's one place where there's usually a basic expectation of presence, vulnerability, and close connection. And factually, sex is much better when there is intimacy. Like, you want that. But intimacy with non-romantic others and even with yourself is just as important to your well-being. I learned this the hard way. Intimacy matters even if you are a single person, okay? Even if you are not engaging in a sexual relationship with anyone. Just on a human level, we just crave intimacy in our lives. It's human. We want presence. We want a place where we can have vulnerability. We want close connection. We want to be seen. We want that. Humans are wired for connection. Our nervous systems actually regulate better when we feel seen and when we feel safe with other folks. The data says it. But when life gets full, work takes over, stress can accumulate, our energy gets fragmented trying to manage whatever life is giving us, and we may be having a great time. So we start prioritizing what feels like it's still moving, what's keeping things moving, the things that make us feel responsible and functional and productive, okay? And then we deprioritize what asks us to slow down, to soften, to actually be present. So intimacy kind of gets knocked off the list. And we've all heard this before, right? We all have heard about, the relationship that started out super spicy and really connective. And, people were super excited to be around each other and talk and connect and do all the intimate things. And then all of a sudden it turns into a relationship where intimacy feels like a chore. Being around each other feels like labor. Sex feels like labor, okay? And it's because even though intimacy is kind of simple when it's present, it still takes energy. It asks something of us, and it requires our attention. It requires emotional availability. It requires a willingness to stay open instead of armoring up. And when we're busy or overwhelmed or stretched thin or got a lot going on or life is popping, even if that stuff is, happening in areas that have nothing to do with like your intimate self, the openness of intimacy can feel like too much. And so sometimes the disappearance of intimacy is a capacity issue. We're so focused on life and keeping things together and running through and getting our day together, and there's just nothing left over. We don't have the internal space to be curious or tender or emotionally available, even if we want to be. Other times, intimacy disappears for a different reason: fear or insecurity or self-protection. Maybe the relationship is evolved, right? I don't feel like I can do that here. Intimacy is asking us to be seen, but we're not going to do that if it feels like we have to risk disappointment or rejection or face that maybe we want something that we're not sure that we're going to get. So instead of admitting things that can essentially cause us to hurt, what we can do is pull back. What we'll do is we'll stay busy. We'll stay surface level. We will perform connection. We will also convince ourselves that we either have it and we're fine, or that we are fine without it. And often it could be any combination of these things. You know, maybe we're depleted and we're guarded. Maybe we're concerned about the relationships that we're trying to be intimate in and we don't have time. Okay. And so intimacy becomes the thing that we tell ourselves that we can do without, not because it doesn't matter, but because wanting it requires vulnerability. But I've come to realize that it is the intimacy that makes any interaction really good, sexually and otherwise. Sex without intimacy is honestly just using a person as a tool. Like, I plan to never do that ever again, if I can help it. And I mean, it gets the job done, quote unquote, but like, you really could have way more fun with some intentional solo playtime in most cases. I mean, like, especially if you're rehearsed at that. So I remember I had a partner years ago who was technically amazing. He had stamina, he was handsome, he was adventurous, he knew how to do the things, like, but the sex felt so disconnected. And so I just assumed that maybe he was nervous because, I mean, he was clearly attracted to me. I could feel the magnetism of that. But after about a month of like what felt like disconnected hookups, I finally asked him, like, what's up? Like, why does it feel like we're disconnected during? And he was like, I'm trying to protect myself emotionally. I don't want to fall for you, blah, blah, blah type stuff. But I need connection. And so we decided to end that part of our relationship. I mean, he was good at the things. Technical skills, very important enough that if I could figure out how to talk about it in this podcast, I would. But the intimacy is what makes it worth your time. Okay. The intimacy is what makes you like, oh my God, I want to do that again. All right. Intimacy changes the entire experience of every relationship. In friendships, you know, I also require intimacy. And I just realized this recently, but with friends, that means that like, I know that I am able to share my identity, my ideas, my humor, my tenderness, my truth. I can be candid and vulnerable. I feel space where I can fully be myself. I feel able to relax. I feel comfortable. I don't feel like I have to perform connection. It's not a, group of small talk. I'm just not even willing to engage beyond an acquaintance level with people I can't have intimacy with. I need the depth. And I've described it to folks as like, I want my experiences with people in my life to feel, robust, substantive. I want a palpable connection. I want it to feel juicy. I want to be overwhelmed with how much we really, really get each other. I like that. And it doesn't have to be that way all the time, but I need to know that I can go there. And to that end, I have also been even more intentional about requiring intimacy with myself. So that means I have been spending intimate time with myself for the same reason. I see value and richness in knowing me well. And I covered some of this in last week's episode, but intimacy with myself includes some of the same elements: leaning into my identity, enjoying my sense of humor, my tenderness, my truth. I also critically look at myself, like the parts that feel really nervous or insecure. Why? I lean into that. Like, what's there? What part of me needs my attention or connection? What part of me makes me feel like I even need to hide it from me? And what results is that I know my likes and dislikes better. I know what makes me feel shy. I know what makes me feel triggered because I am intimate with myself. And because I'm practicing intimacy, it's so much easier for me to access it, right? Now, I also realize that like, many of you may not have considered intimacy beyond romance and may not realize that your craving for partnership, while valid, might not be quite so charged if you were attending to fulfilling your own intimacy needs more fully. So for example, if you are feeling deeply lonely, even when you're busy, if you're feeling disconnected, even when you're surrounded by, a group of people that you are friends with, when you are feeling like something's missing, but you don't know exactly what. If you are assuming that the solution to any of these things, honestly, is finding a relationship, it might be worth considering whether the solution is more intimacy with what is already in your life where you already are. Loneliness isn't always about being alone. It's often about not being seen. Do you see you? I mean, so of course, intimacy can exist in romantic connections, but also in your friendships, in your family relationships, in chosen community, and how you relate to yourself. You don't need to rush into a romantic relationship to meet this intimacy need, but you do for sure need intimacy somewhere. So maybe it's worth noticing, where has intimacy disappeared from my life? Where has it never existed? Where have I maybe minimized it? How, has some of what I might be feeling, actually got a relationship or be connected to my identity asking for my attention? Like how much of my craving something is actually me craving me, right? And I want to be really clear. Like I think that intimacy deserves the same care, whether it is in a romantic sense or whether it is with friends or whether it is with yourself. But we have to be intentional with it. And it's not the looking productive or being impressive or coming across sexy, right? It is literally a foundational part of what keeps us human. Do I have access to spaces where I can have this level of connection, where I can be open and vulnerable and candid and share about myself? And as a person who has been doing a lot of this lately, oh my gosh, the results are so worth it. I mean, so worth it. Like I am so much more deeply connected that I am actually shocked that I have not been living my life this way all along. Like, why would you not want to be this relational with yourself and the people who you're close to? And so I'm going to give you a few reflection questions. I try to give those to you as we go through these episodes. The first one is, what limits have I put on myself and how I understand intimacy? Have I limited it, for example, just to romance? Or have I considered the possibility that I can have intimacy with friends, like close friends? How can I potentially also have intimacy with myself? The second question is, where do I experience real intimacy in my life right now, if anywhere? Because if you're not getting it, you need it. You really need it, right? The next question is, am I avoiding intimacy or avoiding the ache of it not being there? Because sometimes we're avoiding both. I don't want to go deep with anybody because I don't want to get hurt. But I'm also ignoring that not feeling connected makes me feel a little bit hurt. All right. So let's gut check that one. What relationship, whether that's friendship or family or yourself, what might be able to hold more intimacy if I allowed it? Consider that. And also make time to give it to yourself, because we need it. I needed it. I needed it. And as I have come to realize like how important it is for me, I'll be honest, some of your friendships will evolve. You'll spend less time with people that don't make you feel quite so juicy, right? All right. So in closing, I just want to make sure it's clear. Intimacy is not a luxury. It's a fundamental part of your well-being. When we abandon it, we are like adding to the loneliness gap. And abandoning it is with not just intimate partners from a sexual perspective, but also your friendships and yourself. And we don't have to wait to be perfect or find the right relationship romantically to be able to engage in it. You can start to be intimate with you. And I'll give you a simple example. And this episode is all over the place, and I'm sorry, but a simple example of a way that I've done that more so with me. When I catch myself being really shy, I lean into it. My hair is not bleached. Okay. It's also not super short right now. And when I'm like this, I can get super shy. Like I want to hide, I want to cover myself. And I had to dig into that to be like, what's up? Like, why are we hiding ourselves? Like our literal head, like what's going on? And I realized that I had not accepted that this appearance is a part of my experience. Like this has still been very separate from me. And even in the ways that I've talked about it in the past, like I shaved my head, I'm going through this change, blah, blah, blah. It hasn't been integrated. It's just starting to. And so today I was like, I'm gonna shoot the episode like that. In fact, I'm gonna shoot 2 episodes like that. Okay. Because I want to be in community with myself. I want to unpack the thing that makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable. So at the very least, I'm not uncomfortable with me, especially if it's a part of me. And so I think like even doing that kind of labor, the confidence that it gives you to be able to insert yourself into any space and know you're good with you, incredible. All right. So on our love and intimacy tour for this month, we'll talk about next episode how intimacy can be built in practice, particularly in dating and partnerships, because next week is the Valentine's Day week, the love month, day that everyone's excited about. And so I'm going to give you some dating tips and some independent tips and some things if you're in a close partnership or not. That episode's going to get a little spicy. Taking a few chances here. That said, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. If you are enjoying what you're hearing, please go comment, like, and review. I do read your comments, by the way. So if you want to leave me a specific remark, if you have a concern, send me that like on social media. Please don't rate the podcast low. Just find me somewhere and we can talk about it. But if you're enjoying it, please like, share, review, comment. Those things matter to the pod. And kind of let me know if I'm heading in a direction that people can appreciate. So there's that. See you next week.